Hello, and welcome to Discover UMES in the studio. I'm your host, La-Basha Alexander. Many of the faculty here at UMES have some very interesting things going on in their lives, both personally and professionally. Today, our guest on the show is the director of our African and African American Studies program, Associate History Professor Dr. Kathryn Barrett-Gaines, so we can find out what's going on in her world. Stay tuned. Hello, Dr. Barrett-Gaines. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Miss Alexander, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Great. Welcome back from the Capitol Hill, speaking to the senators and congressmen on the Hill.
Yes.
There's exciting things going on in her world, too.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, you were there, too. We went together.
Yeah.
We went to Washington,
Yes.
you and I both, and some other UMES students, and to lobby Congress on Senate Bill 247? S247, which is the creation of the Harriet Tubman National Park, which will be in Eastern Shore of Maryland and in Auburn, upstate New York. So yeah, we did that. It was great. You and I were together. We talked to Congress people and senators, and I emceed a luncheon there in the Capitol building, which you spoke at, and a lot of other celebrities of political nature spoke at. Yeah, it was great. It was a great opportunity. I thought whatever you would have been doing that day in the classroom would probably not have taught you a tenth of what you got out of that day in Washington. I'm telling you, do more stuff outside of the classroom, because not a whole lot of learning happens in the classroom. It happens in what you do and what you read outside of the classroom.
Yes, exactly, and it was a wonderful experience. So, Dr. Barrett-Gaines,
Yes.
I remember the first time I walked into your class.
I remember you walking in there, too.
And
You were late, as a matter of fact, is what I remember.
I was late, and immediately off the bat, I said, wow, this professor is amazing. You challenge all of your students. And so when a student takes a class with you, what are the main lessons that you want them to leave with?
Well, there's three things that I think the only things worth teaching, and that is reading, writing, and thinking. And that's what my whole class is based on. In fact, I don't even think you can teach those things. I think what I do is I give the opportunity for people to learn that, but I don't know if you can actually teach people. What do you think? Do you think I could actually teach you, or don't you have to be ready?
I think you have to be open to learn. In your curriculum, you stress the importance of reading, not offering your students textbooks, but actually giving them books with real people, real events that have occurred. What books have you read that have enlightened you or opened you to new opportunities?
Every book I read. I don't read history books. They're really, really boring. I read books by people who've done interesting things, or about people who've done interesting things. That's what I read about. And then I end up using those in my courses, because that's where history is. History is with people who did things, and not with a professor who wrote about books somebody else wrote about people who did things, which is what textbooks are.
Can you explain a little bit about your celebrity in Uganda? I was reading that you perform music and you're a book reader and everything like that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, the article you said, so you see, you've done your homework. You Googled, right? And so I'm interviewed for a lot of things, but this was a column that someone does this journalist. She's a journalism student in Uganda, and she does a column in the Monitor, which is a daily English language newspaper in Uganda, and it's called Books They Read, and she finds celebrities and she asks them about the latest book they've read. It's a great idea for a column. And so we were talking, and she was a really funny interviewer, because she just sat and wrote down everything I said while I was saying it. So it wasn't like a conversation. It was like I was just dictating to her. And then, you got that? Okay. And then, yeah. So I don't. The less you read, the less choices you have. Absolutely. I think that many people all over the world keep themselves in the prison of their own experience. They can only speak one language, they only know one place, they only dress one way, and they've imprisoned themselves completely. So the less you read, the less you do, the less you open yourself up to, the smaller your world is.
I want to know, who is Kathryn Barrett-Gaines? Besides, we see you in class, we kind of have this idea, she's an amazing woman. You have.
Who has that idea? You're just making that right
I
up.
have that idea.
Well, that was so amazing. I have something in this cup. This cup is empty. It's got dust. Good God.
You know what? It's not empty. It's how you look at it. It could be half empty.
It's
or
not
half
even
full.
half full. You couldn't even pretend that that's somewhere near. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
No. So if I was really that amazing, there'd be something in the cup.
So you have 3 master's degrees.
I do, but that's
In
really
history.
stupid. Nobody should get 3 master's degrees. That's not a good idea, can I just say? I was on my way to get a PhD in this one program. Well, one master's degree was an actual master's degree. That was African American Studies, and that's at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. That was a really great degree. It didn't have a PhD attached to it. It was just what they call a terminal master's. I couldn't have done any further. The second one was supposed to be a PhD at Duke University in cultural anthropology, but I didn't understand a word those people were saying. I sat there for 2 years going, what? So I finished with a master's there and went to a field I understood, which was history at Stanford. Okay. And on the way to getting a PhD, you get a master's. So that third one is the one on the way to getting a PhD in history at Stanford.
Okay. I also want to know.
So don't get 3 master's degrees. You look like an absolute idiot.
Okay. I want to know more about your passion for the African and African American history. Where did that come from? Like, where did you grow up? And
well, I grew up in Washington, D.C. Okay. And my whole life, what I knew just from the time I was born until sitting here right here today is that everything black was better than everything white. See, I had the flip experience of everybody in America, apparently. Because everybody who had any power or was interesting at all and was doing anything worth watching in my world was black.
Wow.
Everybody. And so, I mean, I just from what I was reading and what I was seeing in the world, I saw that everything interesting about this country was black.
Wow.
And so when I went to get a master's degree, I asked myself, okay, what am I going to get a master's degree in? And I thought, if I was getting on an airplane for a long flight and there was a bookshelf in front of me with all the books in the whole world about everything, every subject, which one would I pull off? And I would pull the book off that had something to do with black people.
Wow.
So I said, I'm majoring in African American Studies.
Wow.
But then I realized that the field of African American Studies has nothing to do with Africa. And if African American people or American people at all want to talk about Africa, they just make stuff on up. To make a contribution at all to American education, it would be to teach people about actual Africa. So then I went on to a PhD in African history so that I would learn about actual Africa so we could stop making stuff up.
Wow. That's awesome. So I have one more question. What advice do you have for the students that are ambitious with, like you pursuing a PhD and having a passion for history and things like that?
Well, you know what? Tim Reed was here a couple years ago. Tim Reed is what would you say, a producer, director, actor. He's been in a lot of things. Somebody stood up in the audience. He was doing a talk over in the SSC, and somebody asked him, Mr. Reed, I'm interested in being on TV and doing like acting stuff. What can you hook me up? He said no. And they said, what should I do? He said, act. So what are you waiting for? So my thing is, if you're interested in something, do it. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing what they want to do. Don't wait for somebody to invite you to do the thing you want to do. Do it. If you want right now, this actual second, turn the TV off. Should I talk to the camera? Turn the TV off and actually do the thing you want to do with your life. Just start right now. What you waiting for?
Exactly.
Like, look at her. She's sitting up here on the TV. Got herself all dressed up. She wrote some questions. Google did some research. She's doing it. Did someone invite you to do this? Or did you come out and look for it?
I came out and looked for it.
She's doing it.
All right. Okay. So let's touch back on Uganda and your influence there. How did that come back and how did that come about?
How did that happen?
How did that happen?
It's a crazy story. In Uganda, I have a pseudonym. I'm not known by this Kathryn Barrett-Gaines. I'm known by another name.
It starts with an O.
With an O, yeah.
I don't know how to say it.
Right, it's okay. But so right now, like I write a weekly column under that name, and I have a book is coming out under that name, and I sang and performed on stage under that name for a long time. But all of that is a result of why not? Let's do it. right? Because if I had, said, oh, no, I'm a professor, I don't do that kind of stuff, then what would I be? I would be boring, right? So I said yes to everything. Say yes.
How much time do you spend in Uganda? And do you ever take any students with you on trips or anything like that?
Well, those are two really good questions. I spend as much time as possible there, and I have a great job that allows that because, we teach 14 weeks a semester, so 28 weeks a year, and there's 52 weeks in a year. So I spend half of the, I can spend up to half of the year in Uganda, which I don't, but I could, and so that would be great. That's why. And no, I don't take people to Uganda, and here's why. I don't think anybody who belongs in Africa who needs to be taken there. Wow. I think if you can't get yourself to Africa, you don't belong there because, it's not a field trip to Washington, D.C., where you got a buddy and a name tag and a lunch and you walking around. That's not, if you can't get yourself there, then you don't belong there yet. So I think, yes, the students, UMES students have gone to Uganda, but I haven't taken any of them there. I've helped them and advised them, and they've gotten themselves tickets, and they've flown themselves across the sea, and they've gotten there. And I encourage more and more students to do that. There are students on the staff of Discover UMES who apparently want to go to Uganda or somewhere in Africa, and I think you absolutely should, but I won't take anybody there, no.
Okay.
Have you ever gone to a movie that was about someone who sat and watched TV all the time?
No.
That would be a terrible movie, wouldn't it? But that's basically most people's lives. They watch other people doing interesting things.
Exactly.
But that's not an interesting life.
It's not interesting. Like
You got to do the interesting things. So yeah, so I basically said yes to a bunch of stuff in Uganda that it led me to a whole life there. It's great.
Unfortunately, we're out of time today, Dr. Barrett-Gaines. But thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. This is great. Everybody here is great. Discover UMS is a fantastic thing. I love it. Come back anytime.
And thank you for joining us on Discover UMES in the studio. For more episodes of our show, visit youtube.com/discoverumes. We'll see you next time.